My husband signed the divorce papers and then immediately did something that changed everything. I was not prepared for what came next. My name is Rebecca. I am 41 years old, I live in Dallas, Texas, and 14 months ago my husband of 12 years handed me divorce papers on a Tuesday morning before I had finished my first cup of coffee and told me he had made his decision and he hoped we could be civil about it. I signed those papers 11 days later. What happened in the 17 days after I signed them is the part of this story that nobody who knows me has fully recovered from hearing. But I need to start before the papers. I need to start with Marcus, because Marcus is the whole story. Marcus and I met when I was 27 and he was 32. He was a financial advisor with his own small firm, confident and decisive and the kind of man who made you feel like things would be handled when he was in the room. I was working as a pharmaceutical sales representative, doing well, independent enough that I was not looking for someone to complete me but open enough that when Marcus presented himself I paid attention. We dated for 2 years. We got married in a ceremony in Austin with 112 people and a band that played until midnight. My mother cried. His father gave a toast that made everyone laugh. I remember thinking standing at that altar that I had made a very good decision. For several years I still thought that. The first signs that something was wrong were not dramatic. They were the slow accumulation of small things that individually mean nothing and collectively mean everything. Marcus became more distant around year 7. Not in a way I could point to specifically, he was still present at dinners, still came to family events, still performed the functions of a husband with reasonable consistency, but there was a quality to his attention that had changed. He was somewhere else even when he was in the room. I mentioned. I accepted that because work was demanding and because I did not want to be the kind of wife who manufactured problems. In year 9 I found out about the first woman. Her name was Dana and she was a client and the relationship had lasted approximately 4 months and Marcus told me about it himself, unprompted, on a Sunday evening in November. He said it was over, that it had been a mistake, that he loved me and wanted to save our marriage. I was devastated in the specific way of someone who had not seen something coming that was always coming. We went to couples therapy. We worked on things. I decided to stay because I believed him and because 12 years is not nothing and because I thought the crisis had revealed something that could be repaired. It could not be fully repaired. I know that now. But I tried for 3 more years with everything I had. The divorce papers appeared on a Tuesday in February 14 months ago. Marcus set them on the kitchen table next to my coffee cup and stood on the other side of the table and told me he had been unhappy for a long time and that he thought we both deserved to stop pretending otherwise. He was calm. He had clearly rehearsed this. I sat there and looked at the papers and felt something I can only describe as the specific exhaustion of someone who has been waiting for something bad to happen and has finally been released from the waiting. I told him I needed time to review the documents with my own attorney. He said of course. He left for work. I sat at that kitchen table for 2 hours and then I called my sister and then I called an attorney named Patricia who had been recommended to me by a colleague and who turned out to be exactly the right person for what was coming. Patricia reviewed the documents and told me they were straightforward. Marcus's attorney had prepared a reasonable settlement proposal. Nothing egregious, a division of assets that was fair if not generous. Patricia said I had the right to negotiate but that the baseline was acceptable. She advised me to take the 11 days I was legally entitled to before signing. During those 11 days I did something I want to be honest about because it matters to what came later. I hired a private investigator. Not because Patricia told me to, she did not specifically suggest it, but because the Dana situation 3 years earlier had never fully left me and because I was 40 years old signing divorce papers and I wanted to understand completely what I was signing them for. I wanted the whole picture. I felt I had earned the right to the whole picture. The investigator worked for 8 days. What he found was not what I expected. There was no new woman. I had expected a new woman. There was no affair driving the divorce, no replacement waiting in the wings. What there was instead was a pattern of financial activity that the investigator flagged and that he said was outside his expertise to fully interpret but that I should bring to a financial forensics professional immediately. I brought it to Patricia. Patricia brought in a financial forensics accountant named Howard who spent 4 days going through everything the investigator had flagged. Howard was a small quiet man who delivered enormous information in a very calm voice and who told me at the end of his 4 days that Marcus had been systematically moving money out of our joint financial picture for approximately 3 years. Not a dramatic theft. Not a single large transfer that would have been obvious. A careful, patient, methodical movement of assets, transfers to accounts I had not known existed, underreporting of income from the firm, restructuring of assets in ways that reduced what appeared to be our joint estate. Over 3 years Marcus had repositioned approximately $340,000 out of our shared financial picture into structures that were in his name only. He had started doing this approximately 6 months after the Dana situation. After the couple's therapy. After I had stayed. I want you to sit with that. He came to me with the affair. We went to therapy. I chose to stay. And 6 months after I made that choice he began quietly and methodically preparing to leave me with significantly less than I was entitled to. I signed the divorce papers on day 11. I did not tell Marcus what I knew. Patricia told me to sign and say nothing and let her work, and I trusted Patricia completely. The counterfiling happened 9 days after I signed. Marcus received a legal document from Patricia's office that detailed everything Howard had found, every transfer, every restructured asset, every underreported income figure, 3 years of systematic financial maneuvering laid out in chronological order with documentation. The document also included a filing for fraud in the context of divorce proceedings, which in Texas carries significant legal weight. Patricia told me later that Marcus's attorney called her within 4 hours of receiving the document. She said the conversation was short. The renegotiation of the settlement took 6 weeks. The final outcome was significantly different from the original proposal. I received the house, a sum that reflected the actual value of our joint assets including the repositioned $340,000, and a settlement that Howard described as appropriate. Marcus's firm was also subject to additional scrutiny that I will not detail here, but that had professional consequences for him. Marcus did not speak to me directly during the renegotiation process. All communication went through attorneys. On the day the final settlement was signed he sent me a text that said, "I hope you're satisfied." I did not respond to that text. Now I need to tell you the part that nobody expected. Including me. 3 months after the divorce was finalized I received a phone call from Marcus's mother. Her name is Eleanor, she is 71 years old, and she and I had always had a warm relationship that I had genuinely grieved losing when the marriage ended. Eleanor called me not to relitigate the divorce but to tell me something she felt I deserved to know. She told me that Marcus had come to her 6 months before he served me with the papers. He had told her he wanted a divorce. Eleanor had asked him why. And Marcus had told his mother that he had been in love with someone else for 2 years, not Dana, not a client, not anyone from his professional life. He had been in love with his college roommate's wife. A woman named Sarah who I had met at dinner parties and barbecues and who I had always liked and who I had had no reason to suspect of anything. The affair with Dana 3 years earlier had been real but had not been the point. The point, the person, had been Sarah all along, and Marcus had ended things with Dana when he realized Dana was a distraction from what he actually wanted. He had stayed in our marriage for 2 more years after that realization because Sarah was not yet ready to leave her own marriage. When Sarah's marriage ended, Marcus filed for divorce within 60 days. Eleanor told me this because she said her son had done something dishonest and she believed in honesty more than she believed in protecting him from its consequences. She said she was sorry. She said she had always loved me as a daughter-in-law and that this had not changed. She said she hoped I could find peace. I sat with that phone call for a long time. I want to be honest with you about how I feel now because I think honesty is the only thing worth offering at the end of a story like this. I am not at peace in any simple way. I am in a house that is mine, with a financial settlement that reflects what I was actually owed, with a clarity about 12 years of my life that is painful and clarifying in equal measure. I am in therapy. I am running again, which I had stopped doing during the worst years of the marriage. I had dinner with a friend last week who made me laugh until my face hurt, which is something I had forgotten was possible. Marcus and Sarah are together. I know this because Dallas is not as large as it seems and because Eleanor keeps me informed with the particular loyalty of a woman who has made a choice about where her conscience sits. I do not wish Marcus harm. I wish him the full consequences of his own choices, which is a different thing. So Reddit, was I wrong to hire a private investigator before signing? Was I wrong to say nothing about what I found until Patricia was ready? Because some people say I should have confronted him directly. But he had been moving money for 3 years while I was in couples therapy trying to save our marriage. I think my silence bought me exactly what it was worth. Tell me your verdict. Update, 4 months later. Eleanor called me again 2 months ago. She told me that Marcus and Sarah's relationship had ended. She did not tell me why, and I did not ask because the why does not matter to me, and asking would have suggested it did. What she did tell me, and this I did not expect, was that Marcus had called her after the breakup and told her that he had made a mistake. Not a specific mistake. A larger one. She said he had been quiet on the phone for a long time and then said, I think I spent 12 years with someone genuinely good and I spent those years looking for something else, and I don't know what that says about me. Eleanor told me this because she thought I deserved to hear it. I told her thank you. I meant it. I have been on 3 dates in the past 4 months. Nothing serious. One of them was genuinely lovely, a structural engineer named Paul who asked me questions and listened to the answers and picked up the check without making it a performance. We have had coffee twice since. It is early and I am not in a hurry. I run 4 miles every morning now. My house is exactly the way I want it. I sleep without interruption for the first time in years. I do not know if what Marcus said to Eleanor means anything or changes anything. I do not think it does for me practically. But somewhere underneath the clarity and the running and the good sleep I am still a person who was married to someone for 12 years and loved him and tried, and I am allowed to hold all of that at the same time. So the update is, I am okay. Actually okay. Not performing okay, actually okay. And that took longer than I expected and is worth more than I can say. My brother stole my identity, bought a house in my name, and ruined my credit, then asked me to be his best man. My name is Kevin. I am 36 years old, I live in Columbus, Ohio, and 3 years ago I discovered that my younger brother had been using my identity for 4 years to build a financial life he could not have built under his own name. He had opened credit cards, taken out loans, and most devastatingly purchased a house, an actual house, a mortgage in my name, a property I had never seen, using my social security number, my credit history, and my identity as the foundation of his adult life. I found out when I tried to buy my own house. Let me tell you about my brother first, because understanding him is understanding how this happened. His name is Tyler. He is 32 now, 4 years younger than me, and he has always been the version of our family that got the charm and left the responsibility somewhere behind. Growing up, Tyler was the one teachers liked more, the one our parents worried about less. The one who could talk his way through any situation with a smile that made people forget they had been about to be angry. I loved him the way you love a sibling who drives you crazy but who is fundamentally yours. Tyler had struggled financially since his early 20s. Not catastrophically, not addiction or crisis, just a persistent inability to live within whatever means he had. He had a decent job as a sales representative, but he spent more than he made and borrowed the difference from anyone willing to lend it, including our parents and including me. I had lent Tyler money on 4 separate occasions totaling approximately $11,000. He had paid back about $3,000 of that. I had stopped expecting the rest because expecting it was making me angry, and the anger was costing more than the money. When Tyler was 24, he apparently decided that borrowing money was no longer sufficient and began borrowing my identity instead. I did not know my credit was being used because I was not monitoring it. I was 30 years old, financially stable, not applying for anything. I had no reason to pull my credit report regularly. Tyler apparently understood this. He understood that I was not watching, and he moved into the space my inattention created. The credit cards came first. 3 of them over 18 months, total limit of approximately $22,000. He made minimum payments when he could and let the balances grow when he could not. Then 2 personal loans. Then a car loan. And then, 2 years into the scheme, a mortgage on a 2-bedroom house in a suburb of Columbus that I had never set foot in and that was apparently quite nice based on the photos I looked up later in a state of stunned disbelief. I found all of this out on a Tuesday afternoon in October when I sat down with a mortgage lender to begin the process of buying my own home. I was 34, I had been saving for a down payment for 3 years, I was ready. The lender pulled my credit and went quiet in the specific way of someone who is looking at something they were not expecting. My credit score was 511. I had $287,000 in debt in my name. I sat in that lender's office and I went through the report line by line. Credit cards I had never opened. Loans I had never applied for. And a mortgage, a 30-year mortgage on a property at an address I did not recognize. I called my attorney before I called Tyler. My attorney told me to file a police report immediately and to document everything before I said a word to anyone in my family. I filed the report that evening. Then I called my parents and told them what I had found. My mother went silent. My father asked me if I was certain. I told him I was looking at the documentation as we spoke. Then I called Tyler. Tyler answered on the second ring with the voice of someone who had no idea what was coming. I told him what I had found. There was a silence that lasted long enough to be its own answer. Then he said, "Kevin, I can explain this." I told him the police report had already been filed. Another silence. Then he said, "You called the police on me?" Like I was the one who had done something wrong. I told him I had not called the police on him. I had reported identity theft, which was what had occurred. I told him the distinction was his to make sense of. Then I hung up. My parents called me 20 minutes later. My mother was crying. She said Tyler had called her and told her his version, which involved a great deal of language about family loyalty and very little acknowledgement of 4 years of systematic fraud. My father said there has to be a way to handle this without destroying the boy's life. I told my father that Tyler had been making choices about my life for 4 years without consulting me and that I was going to make one choice about his. The investigation took 4 months. Tyler cooperated partially because his attorney told him cooperation was his best option. He admitted to the credit cards and loans. He contested the mortgage in ways his own financial records eventually contradicted. The outcome was a formal criminal charge of identity theft and fraud, a plea agreement, restitution orders, and a requirement to transfer the house he had bought in my name, that I had never seen, into a proper legal resolution that involved selling it and directing the proceeds toward the debt he had created. The credit repair process took 18 months. Letters, disputes, documentation, attorney involvement. My credit score today is 748. I built that number back from 511, one account at a time. Now here is the part of this story that people always want to talk about most. 6 months after Tyler's plea agreement, while the credit repair process was still ongoing, while I was still dealing with the consequences of what he had done, Tyler got engaged. His girlfriend's name is Melissa. She is a perfectly nice woman who I feel sorry for in ways I cannot fully express. And Tyler called me and asked me to be his best man. He asked me to be his best man. I want to give you the exact words he used because they have stayed with me. He said, "Kev, I know things have been messed up between us, but you're my brother and you're the person I want up there. I've been doing the work. I'm trying to be better. I need you there." I sat with that request for 2 weeks. I talked to my therapist about it. I talked to my wife about it. I prayed about it, which is not something I do regularly but which felt appropriate for a decision of this weight. I said no. I told Tyler that I loved him as my brother and that I wanted his marriage to be happy and that I was not able to stand next to him at an altar and perform a role that symbolizes trust and loyalty when he had spent 4 years systematically dismantling mine. I told him that no was not forever, that I hoped we could rebuild something eventually. But that no was for now, and that now was the honest answer. Tyler was hurt. My mother was hurt. My father said, "He's trying to move forward, Kevin," and I said, "So am I, and this is what moving forward looks like for me." I attended the wedding as a guest. I sat in the fifth row. I watched Tyler get married with his college roommate as best man, and I felt something complicated and quiet that I do not have a single word for. Tyler and I have had 3 real conversations in the past 18 months. They have been careful and honest and more adult than most conversations we had in the 32 years before everything happened. He has not asked me to forgive him directly. I think he understands that forgiveness is something I am working on, and that working on it is not the same as having it. Melissa is pregnant. They are expecting a boy in July. My mother is beside herself with joy. I have bought a gift. My own house, the one I eventually bought 14 months after the lender pulled my credit and found 511, is exactly what I wanted. 3 bedrooms, good neighborhood, a backyard where my dog runs in circles every morning. I am in it right now writing this. So Reddit, was I wrong to file a police report against my own brother? Was I wrong to decline being his best man? Because my mother still thinks I went too far on both counts. But Tyler bought a house in my name while I was saving for my own. Tell me where the line was. Update, 6 months later. Tyler's son was born in July. His name is James Kevin. Kevin is his middle name. Tyler called me from the hospital to tell me. I did not expect the call, and I did not expect what it did to me when it came. I went to the hospital. I held my nephew for about 20 minutes. He is small and perfect and entirely innocent of everything that happened between his father and me. Tyler and I talked in the hallway outside Melissa's room while she was resting. It was the most honest conversation we have ever had. He told me he was sorry, not the sorry of someone trying to get something, but the sorry of someone who had become a father that morning and was looking at what he wanted to be. He said he had been ashamed for 3 years, and that shame had been making it impossible to actually apologize, and that holding his son had broken something loose. I told him I hurt him. I told him I was not ready to say everything was fine because it was not everything fine. I told him I was willing to try. We are trying. It is slow and careful and nothing like what brothers are supposed to be at 36 and 32. But we are somewhere, and my nephew exists, and somewhere is more than nothing. My sister used our dead mother's name to inherit her house. I found out at the will reading when my name was gone. My name is Diana. I am 44 years old, I live in Atlanta, Georgia, and 2 years ago I sat in an attorney's office for my mother's will reading and discovered that my name, which my mother had told me was in her will, which she had confirmed in a conversation 6 months before she passed, was not there. What was there instead was my sister's name. Twice. In places where mine should have been. My mother passed away 18 months ago from complications following surgery. She was 71 years old, she had been declining slowly for several years, and her death, while devastating, was not entirely unexpected. She was a woman who had worked hard her entire life, a retired nurse who had bought her own home at 43 after my parents divorced and had paid it off over 20 years with the particular determination of someone who understood that a paid-off house was a form of freedom. That house was the primary asset in her estate. It was worth approximately $280,000 at the time of her passing. My sister's name is Carol. She is 49, 5 years older than me, and she had always been closer to our mother geographically. She lived 12 minutes from my mother's house while I lived in Atlanta, 3.5 hours away. This proximity had always been framed by Carol as a form of sacrifice. She was the one who was there, the one who checked in, the one who managed the day-to-day of our mother's declining years. I was grateful for this. I sent money regularly to help with expenses. I visited every 6 weeks and called every few days. I believed we were doing this together in the ways available to each of us. The will reading happened on a Thursday morning. Carol was there, I was there, and our mother's attorney, a man named Gerald who had handled her affairs for 15 years. Read through the document carefully and professionally. When he reached the section about the house, he read Carol's name. Then he read Carol's name again in the section about the savings account. Then he looked up and asked if there were questions. I said yes. I had questions. I told Gerald that my mother had spoken to me 6 months before her death and had told me clearly that the house was to be divided equally between Carol and me and that the savings account was to be split the same way. Gerald said that the will in front of him was dated 8 months ago, 2 months before that conversation, and reflected the distribution he had read. I asked if I could see the document. He showed it to me. The will was real. The signature was my mother's. The date was 8 months prior to her death, 6 months before our conversation about equal division. I drove to Carol's house directly from the attorney's office. Carol opened the door and looked at my face, and I watched something move across her expression that told me she had been expecting this visit. I asked her what had happened. She told me a version of events in which our mother had wanted to revise her will to reflect Carol's greater contribution to her care and had made the decision independently and had simply not told me. She said she had found out herself only recently. She said she was sorry I was blindsided. I did not believe her. I hired an attorney the next morning. My attorney's name was Patricia, and she was sharp and direct and told me that challenging a will was a significant undertaking that required evidence of undue influence, lack of capacity, or fraud. She asked me what I had. I told her about the conversation with my mother 6 months before her death. Patricia said a verbal statement was meaningful but not sufficient on its own. She asked if there was anything else. I thought about it for 3 days. Then I remembered something. 6 months before my mother passed, during the same visit where she had told me about the equal division, she had asked me to help her record a voice message for Carol that she was going to send via WhatsApp because she had trouble typing on her phone. I had held the phone while she recorded. The message was about a doctor's appointment. I had not thought about it since. But the phone, my mother's phone, which Carol had been managing since her death, had a WhatsApp history. I asked Carol for access to our mother's phone to retrieve some photos. Carol said the phone had been reset. I asked when. She said shortly after the funeral. A phone reset shortly after the funeral. A will revised 8 months before death. A conversation about equal division 6 months before death that post-dated the revised will. Patricia said this was a picture worth building on. We retained a digital forensics expert to examine whether the WhatsApp data could be recovered from a cloud backup. It could. Not the specific voice message that had been deleted, but the metadata showed a pattern of communication between my mother and Carol in the 2 months before the will revision that was significantly more dense than any previous period. Dozens of messages in a compressed timeframe that Patricia said was consistent with a sustained conversation campaign. We also found 2 witnesses. My mother had a neighbor named Ruth who had been her closest friend for 20 years. Ruth told our investigator that in the months before the will revision my mother had seemed confused and uncertain in ways she had not been previously. Ruth said Carol had been present at almost every interaction she had observed during that period. Ruth said she had mentioned to Carol once that she thought my mother seemed overwhelmed and Carol had said she was handling it. My mother's physician confirmed that she had been showing early signs of cognitive decline in the period before the will revision. Nothing diagnosed. Nothing documented as incapacity, but a pattern that the physician said was consistent with vulnerability to influence. Patricia took everything to mediation. Carol arrived with her own attorney and with the confidence of someone who had a signed legal document on her side. Patricia laid out everything we had, the metadata pattern, Ruth's testimony, the physician's observations, the documented conversation with me about equal division that post-dated the revision. Carol's attorney went quiet in the specific way that attorneys go quiet when they are recalculating. The mediation took 2 days. The outcome was a negotiated settlement, not everything I would have received under equal division but significantly more than nothing. Carol retained more than half, but I received an amount that Patricia described as a fair resolution given the evidentiary limitations. Carol and I have not spoken since the mediation ended. I do not expect this to change. Our relationship, which had always had its complications, has not survived the weight of what happened in the last 2 years of our mother's life. What I think about most is not the money. It is the conversation I had with my mother 6 months before she died. She had looked at me across her kitchen table, another life-defining conversation, and told me she wanted things to be equal between her daughters because she loved us equally and did not want money to be the thing that divided us after she was gone. It divided us anyway. Just not in the way she had tried to prevent. Update, 5 months later. Ruth called me 2 months ago. She said Carol had come to see her and had asked her what she had told our investigator. Ruth said she had told Carol the truth, that she had told the investigator what she had observed. She said Carol had been angry and had said some things Ruth described as unkind. Ruth said she wanted me to know she did not regret speaking honestly. She said my mother had been her friend for 20 years and that honesty was what her friend would have wanted. I sent Ruth flowers. She called to thank me and we talked for 40 minutes about my mother, her laugh, her cooking, the way she always had coffee ready when anyone came to visit. It was the best conversation I had had in months. I am not done grieving my mother. I think that grief and the grief about Carol have become tangled in ways that will take time to separate. I am in therapy. I am working on it. My mother's house was sold as part of the settlement. The new owners have painted the front door red. I drove past it once. I sat in my car outside for a few minutes. Then I drove away. So Reddit, was I wrong to challenge the will? Was I wrong to hire investigators and attorneys instead of accepting what the document said? Because Carol says I dishonored our mother's final wishes. But my mother told me what her wishes were. And what the document said was different. Tell me what you think.